I'm open to any of that, Fred. So
I guess I move to approve this, and I'm going to say let's waive renewal unless it's brought to Denny's attention that it has to come back to us.
I'll second the motion.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Review and consider extension of a conditional use permit for a vehicle repair garage at 1300 Gateway Circle. Matt Briggs, Briggs Auto Service. I think
again, Mr. Briggs has maintained the property. He's created a storage area on the south side of the property where he keeps any of the used tires or the vehicle parts. He did add on to his off-street parking, so there's no on-street parking at the location. Now, I'd like to see the parking lot paved, but again, that wouldn't occur till next spring. It's gravel at the present time, but he does provide space for the cars to be parked off-street. Recommend approval. Again, either 3 years, or if you're the same thing as last time.
I recall though that corner was very crowded with cars, that there were a bunch out in the street. Now, are you saying that's all?
Oh, it's all good. He's had. I haven't seen a car parked on the street there for some time. Either that, or I just drive by at the wrong time of the day. I don't know which. But no, the last several times I've driven by, all the cars have been in the parking lot.
Yeah, I'm back there a lot. No, I don't see him anymore.
Fine.
I think so.
Well, then I'll move to approve with the same kind of terms and conditions of the last one. Unless something happens, let's let it go.
Does he need to add the part about paving the?
No, I'll
Okay.
talk to him about that.
Is
Okay,
that
all
part
right.
of this though, the paving, or is that just something he plans on doing?
It is intended to do. I just don't think they got to it this year. So
It's not part of the
no, it's
CP.
not.
Okay,
Yeah.
right,
No.
okay.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on. Number 5, subdivision review, 201 Carmichael Road. 2 certified survey maps, CSM west of Carmichael Road, Chris Hansen, Hansen Brothers. Denny, you want to speak
Yeah,
first?
just a few opening comments. Mr. Jeff Redmond, the counsel for Hansen Brothers, and Angelo Copenhagen, City Attorney Catherine McKittrick, and I spent quite a bit of time between the last planning commission and this one to work out a development agreement. We have addressed the issues of future roadways west of the site, also the off-street parking issue if the clubhouse is sold and the parking for the golf course is relocated to the golf course property. And then there's also been discussions with Walgreens and Culver's. I'm recommending approval of the 2 certified survey maps with the provision of the 33-foot access easement provided on the golf course property abutting the proposed 3 development lots and 1 outlot. Certified survey maps may not be recorded into the development agreement between the City of Hudson and Hansen Brothers. Is executed and recorded, and letters of credit be provided to assure proposed public and private sanitary sewer, water, and driveway improvements. The final design of the utility and private driveway be approved by the city engineer. And we do not have the written documents by Walgreens and Culver's. I have visited Culver's. I think the only thing that they were waiting for was a confirmation on turning radius of the proposed driveway. And Jeff had received, Mr. Redmond had received a email from a property owner where the Walgreens, and as long as Walgreens signs off, so we just be waiting for those 2 things in writing. We would hold any document or any recording CSMs until that's received.
Am I under the impression at some point in time that there will be either a roundabout or a light put in at this potential road or access?
Well, there's 2 issues that potentially would initiate that. First, if any property on the east side of Carmichael Road, which is now not in the city, is the next. At that point, we would negotiate, we would negotiate those improvements. The second thing, I don't think the additional traffic that be generated by these 3 lots would create a necessity for a signal system or a roundabout. More likely, what would warrant that is if, let's say at the end of the 7-year period of where they have an agreement to maintain it as a golf course, that period terminates, they come in the city, ask for rezoning, then we'd be looking at a traffic impact study and then take a look at that issue. Or before the 7-year period would be up, the Hanson Brothers would come to us, request to be let out of that agreement, and if the city would do that, then again, there'd be most likely, from my perspective, there'd be discussions of traffic impact statement, other considerations as part of that consideration, so.
Well, and as I think you're indicating, the question is, it's gonna come, it's just when. And so is that into the thinking?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and we've been, that's been discussed for several years now, so. If Jeff or Angela have anything in particular to?
I don't have anything unless the Plan Commission has questions. I think we've displayed it several times. We've tried to accommodate access to the north with easements, access to the south to give Walgreens and Culver's access. So I think we've addressed all the issues that Plan Commission have asked of us, and approached both Culver's and Walgreens regarding the design complies with the easements that are of record. And Culver's has asked for a different alignment, and the only way to do that is to get Culver's or Walgreens specific written approval, because they have a specific easement across Culver's that gets them to a particular point, which is where the current access is. Culver's would like to move that access to the west, and you know, we're happy to do that, but they need to get the approval of Walgreens.
Are they in the process of doing that?
Yeah,
or-
I've sent a letter to Walgreens. The landowner has said, we will consent so long as Walgreens, because that's their long-term tenant. And I can't imagine they would care, because as part of it, we're giving them an access to the west, so they could continue, they could
Right.
have a westerly exit out of their property. So I received the consent from the Walgreens landowner within a matter of literally hours, so.
May I ask another question? It's
Certainly.
just a curiosity one. I'm looking at these two maps, and you show the access to the Culver's lot really two different ways.
That's what Jeff's referring to.
So
One
the one-
is,
Oh.
The
Okay.
first one
Well,
is the
that-
one
then-
that is approved.
Okay.
The other one, the first one that you have showing there that brings the access back to the current point of entrance with Culver's. They would prefer the access be further west to their property.
Okay, I get it.
And so the agreed upon one is the one that meets up exactly where it is now. So we're not changing their access one bit. What they would prefer is a different one, and we're working to get approval for that.
Thank you very much.
Well, sounds, go ahead.
Is the access to the north, is that this third page or the second page here?
No, that is a possible access.
Okay,
So the easement in the development agreement is 33 feet along
straight across.
straight across,
This is here.
and
yeah.
33 feet on the golf course property, so you'd have a 66-foot wide easement. I think there's recognition that that's probably ultimately not the best point of connection.
Right.
But we have that easement, and the development agreement has language that we will work with the city and the northerly property owner. If a different place is more logical, we'll move it.
Right, that's why I just want to get that confirmation here, that that's, right now it's 33 feet across, but if at some point we need something moved, we'll do that
Yeah.
when the whole.
And we have a cooperation agreement to make it logical, because it would be
That's what you
doable where it's at.
actually, we have 66 feet.
Right, 33 feet on either side,
The other side.
33 feet on the platted,
Right.
the CSM lots, and 33 feet on the golf course property.
Correct.
So a total of 66.
So we have that. So we utilize that, or if there's a better alternative alignment that the city, the golf course, and the property to the north can agree upon,
Mhm.
then that would be the option. If that's the option in the future, then the 66-foot easements could be extinguished and would go away.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that's where we're at, that we have that flexibility if need be.
That's correct.
So,
Yep.
okay.
And still the access across your lot 2, 1, and 3, CSM, B, A, and A, is across these lots, is that correct? In other words, they'll enter on lot 2, and to get across, they'll
There's
drive.
cross easements between those 3 lots to give them each access.
Angela, it seems to me that the second option that Culver's is hoping to get would actually have a better flow of traffic for all, for the Walgreens, for all of that area behind.
And the thing we were dealing with is Triple Play, which was the Ericksons that developed these lots originally. They imposed easements, and our easement is just an act on the Hanson property is just a general access to Carmichael Road. The one across Culver's is a very specific line that goes to a point certain, and so we don't have any capacity to change that without those landowners' consent. But we made sure that our driveway access got them back to that point
Yeah.
of intersection.
But like you said, you would think they're gonna have better traffic flow. You would hope that they would consider that.
And the other thing that I think suggested we're giving to them is a westerly access point where they could go to the west and get back to this road, which they don't have now.
I will move to approve with all the conditions that Denny has made clear or brought to our attention for this, please.
Do we need that stated, Tim, or is it?
Sorry.
Do we need those conditions stated in the motion?
Well, yeah, let me reiterate those points. 33-foot wide access easement be provided on the golf course property, which would be the west side of the proposed 3 lots and the 1 outlot. Certified survey maps may not be recorded into the development agreement between the City of Hudson and Hanson Brothers X12 LLC is executed and recorded. Letters of credit be provided, sure public, private sanitary sewer, water, and driveway improvements. Final design of the utility and private driveway be approved by the city engineer, and written confirmation of the easements from the property owners of Walgreens and Culver's, and the owner of the Walgreens or Walgreen location has extended that written agreement to the Walgreens themselves. Now, are you asking whether the options for the easement and the alternative easement also be included or clarified, or they are in the development agreement?
If they're in the development agreement, then that's fine. So, are those are the stipulations?
Well, I mean, I couldn't remember what he said, but yes.
Okay, then I second the motion.
And then, yeah, okay, thank you.
I have one more question. Just for clarification, what's changing in the golf course then? When if this goes through, what changes are gonna be final change? Because you've made some changes here now, so how does that affect the golf course?
At this point, there's no changes. To the extent these lots would be sold, it's anticipated that the clubhouse would be moved to the, where they have cart storage now, and they would provide alternative parking, and all of that's in the development agreement.
And because I was trying to look in here, I didn't see it, the driving range.
Yeah, that ends up probably going away and
Okay.
becoming part of the parking, and the northerly lot, subdivided lot, is the 18th green.
Right.
So the 18th green gets moved down the hill. That hole becomes a par 4 rather than a par 5.
And was
Get
there
a much better score now.
was there a 10th hole?
I can't hit it up that hill anyway.
Was there something with the 10th hole too or something? Or?
The tee box of the
The 10th
10th
hole.
will have to be changed as well.
But the issue with the parking clubhouse relocation, or where they collect green fees, they have to come back to the city of Hudson. They have to conform to the zoning code. They have to go to DNR to get storm drainage permits. All those, just like any other development, has to occur. It's just not that they can go out and do it.
Right.
I mean, they have to come back to the city and get the appropriate permits to do so.
Is there any other
Could I ask one question? I know that the Plan Commission has asked for the written approval of Culver's and Walgreens. You know, there's contractual language in the record that our lot is subject to an easement that provides access for Walgreens and Culver's to Carmichael, and we are still complying with that easement. To give Culver's and Walgreens a veto by saying that we won't approve this unless they approve it, I think is unfair. We've complied with all of our contractual obligations. We're working with them, we're cooperating with them, we've reached out, we will continue to get it. But I personally think it's unfair to let Culver's and Walgreens say, we want more than our contractual obligations, we can somehow veto the subdivision of those lots. So, you know, and I know that that's been a concern, and we've went to those parties, and but there's of record easements that we are absolutely complying with now, and so to require that we get the written approval of them before the subdivision is approved, I think is unfair, but that's certainly your prerogative. But I would just ask for some, I'll say, dispensation. We've already gotten positive indications from both of them, but if for whatever reason one of them says, no, I won't sign anything, then we don't get the subdivision.
I think what we're looking for is acknowledgement, more than consent, of those two parties that they have been contacted. My understanding, Culver's, if the issue of the radius was addressed, was willing to sign it, send us a letter.
Right.
So I think it's more of an written acknowledgement.
And we're certainly fine with that. I just thought the consent was, you know, inappropriate to sort of let the neighbor have veto power.
I think ultimately they're just looking for a consensus. I mean, okay, is everybody okay with all this?
Well, here's the issue for the city. There is a private easement agreement between 3 private properties, and the city is looking at, you know, improvements to the property to the north, the golf course. We don't want to get in the middle of an issue between those 3 private parties. That's what the city's trying to avoid.
Right.
So we want acknowledgement that these 2 other parties know what is being proposed.
And we've certainly given notice, and we can get that acknowledgement. I would also add that in the development agreement, we have an agreement that we would hold the city harmless from any disputes over that. I mean, we're complying with the agreement, so I don't anticipate any, but
No, I don't disagree with what Jeff's saying, so.
No.
Okay,
Thank you.
we have a motion, and we have a second, and I'm assuming you're gonna keep your motion the way it is.
As is.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Number 6, application for rezoning 16.16 acres, formal travel information center at 2221 Crestview Drive from PUB public to quasi-public district to B2, from public or quasi-public district to B2 General Business District, and to amend the 2009 City of Hudson Comprehensive Plan, the 2030 Master Plan map land use designation from public to general commercial. Hudson Center, David Robson. He's here. Denny, you want to speak
Yeah,
first?
just open. Everybody's familiar with the former state visitor or state information center location north of Crestview Drive and west of Gateway Boulevard and south of I-94. Again, the request is to change the zoning from public to B2 general business. I am not opposed to the rezoning. The one issue that we were wanting to make sure before the rezoning recommendation went to the Common Council is in regards to traffic and the potential impact of the intersection, the interchange, or the Crestview Drive, Carmichael Road intersection. We're not concerned about the interchange overall from this potential development. We do want to have the traffic impact study broadened to include the Crestview Drive, Carmichael Road interchange. I guess I feel that there may not be, any negative implications from that, or, traffic implications. But I guess in this instance, we would rather be conservative and wait for those findings. So my recommendation is not to forward a recommendation on the zoning tonight. The Common Council is scheduled Monday night to hold a public hearing. They can hold a public hearing. They have first reading on the ordinance. That's their prerogative. However, hopefully we'd have that expanded traffic impact study done by the end of the month and bring it back for your Plan Commission review prior to the next council meeting in December. Other than that, that's really the issue. Other traffic-related issues, we reviewed. We feel that a signalized system or signalized intersection versus a roundabout at the west access or the primary access to the site off of Crestview Drive is the best way, because we have a consistent system then. We're not starting to mix roundabouts, signal system. A roundabout would be more efficient to let traffic through faster. You may end up with some kind of issue as far as stacking at the Gateway Boulevard, Crestview Drive access. So it'd be our recommendation to have that signalized intersection versus a roundabout. The other issue I've had after rethinking this over is we talked about from a traffic perspective, the issue of where we require Gateway Boulevard to be one way going north. I have received one response from Quick Trip. They would prefer not to see that. I think by going one way to the north, I think you're going to end up with confusion of drivers. You're going to have first-time drivers going to these commercial sites. They're not familiar with our system. You start getting a system that it's a hybrid going in, where you can go in, if we don't allow it to go two ways through the site and back to the Gateway Boulevard to the access to Crestview Drive, I think you're going to end up starting to have some confusion of the drivers. The local drivers, certainly, if they need to, will go out west to the second access to Crestview Drive and probably west on Crestview. But, and so I guess at this point, we're not suggesting that Gateway Boulevard be a one-way in only and not allowed to be out.
Well, Denny, that might be fine, but my thought on that is then taking a left out of that Quick Trip onto Gateway, if their entryway closest to Crestview, right, it's hard right now, and if you have all the extra traffic, that might be tough to take a left there, right across from Taco Bell there. You know what I'm talking about?
Correct.
So that might have to be changed to a right-in only, and then have all the traffic exit where their car wash is, towards that end.
Well, that may not be a significant issue. I mean,
No, it may
I
not.
think most of the exiting traffic is going to go on the north side of those buildings,
Right.
just simply because it's going to be easier to get out of that site
Backside.
with that traffic flow.
The other issue I have in that area is the left out of County Market, going onto Crestview. That should probably just be a right out instead of a right and a left out. Because that,
You mean up on Crestview?
Yeah.
The Crestview exit?
right, because I think
Past the
that with the additional traffic there, I think that would cause some issues as well.
Well, certainly we can review those. I don't.
That's not for tonight, I understand.
Yeah,
I just wanna-
no, and that's what my comment would be, is that, we can review that as far as traffic on Crestview Drive, but to make those requirements as part of this applications, I would not tie the two together.
Can I make it?
I would like to hear though, the traffic, I think you're bringing up traffic.
Mhm.
I've already seen Gateway, when with Taco Bell and McDonald's and Quick Trip. I've seen that stacked all the way back, way back even where you can turn onto it. That's not negative, it's just I would like to see the impact study, because it might affect the turn lanes, it could affect the bridge at 11th Street, it could affect Carmichael, it could affect all of that stuff. And I think it'd be wise to see all that.
David?
Well, the traffic study does address the two intersections, both the gateway and the new intersection that we'll create over by the entrance to our property. So those are already addressed. One of the things that we discussed in our meeting today with the traffic study people and the people that are for FOTH, who does your civil engineering, and the people from FOTH thought that the new stoplight down at the west entrance to our property will actually help that gateway intersection, because it's going to slow down that traffic that's now flowing easterly from the west at a high speed, free flowing. So those people will be forced to stop. It'll give people coming out of County Market and turning left a better chance, and it'll also give people a better chance to get around the corner at Gateway. The third thing is that if the stacking in that gateway gets back up to the north, people are going to take the path of resistance. They're just going to go back through our new road and come out farther out into the west, onto Crestview, I think.
I have a concern about that intersection. We've discussed it in public safety, a few attempts as to how we can improve it. The intersection needs to be improved in some way, shape, or form, especially if we're gonna add commercial there. I like the one-way idea. I understand I'm not an expert in the field, but you can't even get out of Taco Bell. It's not just a Quick Trip McDonald's side. There's a whole other side to this intersection, and they only have one way in and out, and it's very dangerous. And I think many cars that want to turn left coming from the south, from Valvoline and all those areas, it's very dangerous to turn left because cars are going straight. You don't know what's happening. I think the intersection is one of the most confusing intersections we have in the city. And although I would like to agree with what you're saying as far as they'll take the path of least resistance, coincidentally, I was just talking to Denny about the on-ramp to 94, or I'm sorry, to Cooley and Carmichael corner, and nobody ever goes in the far left lane to turn left. You have all the people on the second lane is backing up, and you would think people would take the path of least resistance to keep the traffic flowing, but I don't know if it's necessarily always that easy that's what will happen. My concern is that I'd like to see something more definite instead of assuming that that's how the traffic is going to flow.
Well, we can take a look at that gateway north of Crestview is between now and the next meeting. So.
Please. Would Quick Trip even consider the possibility of closing that front entrance?
I didn't ask them that question.
And coming out the back, that's going to give their customers a lot more room. If I get gas over there or pick something up there, I don't come out that way, especially if I want to go left. I go out the back because then there's more room to make that turn.
I feel like, and I'd have to go back to minutes, I feel like we discussed that with them at one point through public safety. I feel like Chief Jensen went and talked to them.
Oh, somebody did?
Yeah, because we had this concern now. We've been trying to address it for a while, and I don't think it went in the way we would hope. So, but don't quote me, but I'm pretty confident.
You'd want to keep that open as a right in, but I think even now as it sits today, coming left out of there isn't very ideal. Another question or maybe thought we may or may not want to talk about is, should we require an easement for people to get to Taco Bell off of Lot 4 here? Or is that not even something that's that we can be concerned about or anything?
We're having conversations. We're having conversations with them about selling them land to tie to their property, to connect it, so it's more square or rectangle.
Well, that or just so people, to help alleviate some of this traffic issues, if they have an access to their property from the back end or through what's that proposed Lot 4.
Right, but we are in discussions about selling them property.
Okay.
So we wouldn't want to be in a position where we're forced to give them property.
Well, you're going to do further parking or traffic study, right?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we want to.
Right.
We're going to expand the study to
Perfect.
include the intersection, and we can take a better look at the
Right.
Gateway Boulevard issue.
Good with that.
What's the total acreage of the property? I can't
16
find it.
16.16
It is
acres.
totally
16.16 total, net
One-
developable is approximately 1.12 acres.
Okay, so none of it will be
Or
left public
12.12
anymore.
acres.
Yeah, 12.12 will be developable.
But, and we're not gonna, we're not considering, well, I know that you've tried to contact public entities, so I mean, you want it all to go commercial and not any part of it to be
The
left.
people that we've talked to, including the city and New River Falls, have said that they're not interested this
Right.
time.
Right.
So we've exhausted those possibilities.
I think this is great.
Yeah, I do
Redevelopment
too.
opportunity.
I
I
do
mean,
too.
it's been an eyesore for a long time.
Absolutely.
I think it's great too.
Me too.
I'd recommend postponing until we get the expanded traffic impact study.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Subdivision review, certified survey map, 3 lots and 1 outlot, 2221 Crestview Drive, formal travel information center, Hudson. Dave Robson, did we kind of already go through that?
Yeah, this issue, I mean, the subdivision itself is neutral to the zoning. The only issue that I believe is outstanding on the subdivision is an easement on the south side of the property for storm drainage. Other than that, the certified survey map itself is okay. If the zoning goes through, that's fine. If it stays public, I guess the developer's gonna have to deal with that issue. I mean, I assume that they won't file it till after the zoning's. My recommendation is to approve the certified survey map, but if you wanna wait till you deal with the zoning issue,
Let me
I
ask
guess
a
you can address
question.
it either way.
Let me ask a question with that in mind. I mean, you have the road, I guess, predetermined or showing where the road would be. If traffic were to come back and say, it'd be better to do it a different way, can we do that with the potential that the road?
The only thing that would change on the road alignment would be if a roundabout is put in, then additional right-of-way would be necessary off Crestview Drive. This alignment of the internal street, I do not see changing.
Okay.
Is this putting the cart before the horse, or do you want to just wait
Like I
till?
said, the subdivision itself is neutral.
Right.
I mean, it's not gonna change. But if you wanna wait until, and take it up again at the same time as zoning, I don't know. I asked the developers if that's a concern of theirs.
Not concerned, but if you approve it and if you don't get rezoned, we're not gonna record the CSM, I guarantee.
I think we should, I would personally prefer to wait. I mean, what's the point of, it's not
We
gonna
can
make
hear
a
them all at the
difference,
same
like you
time.
said, and, yeah, just do it all in one time if everything works out.
We're not being negative, we just want to know the answer, so I will move to postpone,
Yeah.
until we hear the traffic.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you. I think, David, you're off the hook now. So, all right. Concept development plans for redevelopment of Dibbles Hotel, 517 Second Street, for banquet center, restaurant, craft beer pub, office retail, and residences, and review of payment in lieu of parking. Last Man Standing LLC, Anthony DeBruzzi.
Anthony, give you the floor to introduce the project. I believe Todd Sweevelhofer from Elliott Architects is here tonight also to help explain the project, and then we can get into discussion.
I'm Anthony DeBruzzi. Thank you for giving me some time tonight. I grew up in Afton, moved across the border about 5 years ago, and I've now spent a lot of time in Hudson. Actually grew up going to Dibbles for concerts. A while ago, I had an opportunity to talk to the owners about purchasing the property. We've now got a purchase contract in place, and we want to try to revitalize the building from where it is currently to a heart of Hudson again, as it used to be. It's a beautiful property. It's got a lot of potential, and we've got some plans in place that we're going to show you tonight to bring that property back to its full potential. It's not an immediate change. It is a large project, and we'll be working with the city for quite a while to complete all of our thoughts and ideas. I don't know if you want me to go into any specifics. I know you've got the plans in front of you.
Maybe Todd would like to go over what's proposed and
Yeah, I can go into that a
also
little bit.
the proposed elevations.
All right, on the Dibbles property is just give you a brief summary of what is existing there now. I'm sure most of you know. Currently, there's the front bar area off of 2nd Street. That part of the building was built originally in 1875, and it seats about 48 people. To the immediate north of that is the cafe that has been closed now for a year or two. That portion of the building was built a year later in 1876 and used to seat about 66 people. And then in the back on the western part, facing the alley and towards the river, is the nightclub. And that was built in the early 1960s and added onto in the 1970s. And the bar and the nightclub currently are still operational, and the cafe portion of it is closed. The second floor, existing second floor, currently is used for boarding house, congregate living facilities are up there. It is the old portion of the original commercial hotel. And the third floor, which was also part of the original commercial hotel, which was built again in 1875, the third portion, or the third floor, a portion of that was burned in 1977, and a portion of it is still there, although it is still part of it has been eliminated and demoed because of the burn, and the rest of it is remaining, but it is still not usable at this point because of the fire. So that used to house about 15 rooms up on the third floor. So then there are 4 basement areas underneath the building that are somewhat separated from each other, and those currently are used for storage and some mechanical spaces. So what Anthony and his group want to do, number one, the first goal is to, bring this historic building back to its original state and put some blood back into it, breathe some life back into it, and really restore a portion of Hudson's history. So phase 1 would include a complete demolition down to the structure of the entire building and bringing the building up to code, replacing heating, mechanicals, lighting, electrical, bringing in fire suppression. The building has been in a state of disrepair, a lot of deferred maintenance, and there's a lot of issues from a structural standpoint and just from a code standpoint that Anthony and his group want to clean up and bring up to today's standards. So that's kind of the first step, is to basically demo down to structure and repair and bring the infrastructure of the building up to today's standards. So second phase, which would immediately follow that, is the build out of the front part, which he wants to turn into a restaurant and then the craft beer pub. So phase 1, do all the infrastructure work. Phase 2, immediately get the bar, restaurant operational, new kitchens, new accessible toilet rooms, and get that up and operational. The plan is at this point to seat about 127 people, which is basically taking over where the existing bar and cafe is. So that's phase 1, and then restore the 2nd Street elevation back to more of a historic front. Now when the third floor had the fire, part of that was demoed and replaced with just some concrete blocks. So he wants to do, as you can see in some of our images, bring the front of the building back to its original state. Open up the arch window where the horses used to come in, and turn it back into a historic front on 2nd Street. So immediately after he gets the front portion of it up and operational, he wants to then do a build out of the back portion, which is currently the nightclub. And the intended use for that would be a banquet facility. This would be used primarily on the weekends for wedding venues and have the ability to seat about 300 people is the target number. So there's a niche, he feels, at that number in terms of banquet facilities and the number that are available in the area. So that would be what we're calling kind of phase 1C, I guess. Phase 1 being infrastructure, or 1A, 1B being the front, 1C being the build out of the banquet hall. And then based on demand, potential future users, Again, he's gutted out the second level and the third level, brought it up to code. And then the potential future phases would be build outs on the second and the third level. So, and those would be based on need and commercial rental space, some apartment space, but that isn't really the focus at this point. The focus is really on the main level. So, you know, as you can imagine, this is quite a undertaking, but we kind of look at it as a great opportunity. I mean, Anthony and his group are pretty excited about bringing Dibbo's back to the way that it used to be. So it's really restoring a piece of Hudson's history, bringing a building that is in disrepair back to current code standards. You know, an opportunity, I think, for us in the city to solve some potential life safety risks on a building that has some issues, hasn't been addressed since, you know, the early 1900s, doesn't have sprinkler systems, in a downtown area that has obviously a lot of buildings as neighbors. So if we can bring up to code, that improves the neighborhood in terms of life safety, fire, those types of things. So. And then, you know, an opportunity to eliminate what in the past, as everybody may know, is, you know, there's been a couple of issues over there in the past that we don't need to get into, but hopefully those would also be eliminated. So, so from this perspective, I mean, this is, you know, phase one, you know, we're going to be in the $1 to $2 million range worth of effort. And then building out second and third floor. I mean, by the time he's all said and done, we're going to be probably north of $2 million. So this is a big undertaking, and but we also see it as a big opportunity to partner and to get some assistance from the city, if at all possible, to make this work. You know, we need cooperation and help from the city, because otherwise, you know, he's probably not going to be able to do the project. So,
What's your timeline to get through 1B? Through the build out of the restaurant and beer pub and kitchen, not the banquet hall, because I know that's still in phase one, but kind of a secondary phase of phase one.
Right now, pending the city's decision on the parking and a few other issues, we expect and we hope to open June 1st. That would be our target date for the front bar restaurant. It's a very aggressive schedule, but with the boat traffic, the 3 of the most important months of the year,
right.
June, July, and August, we would like to try to open for one of the early part of the summer.
Do you have I didn't see anything just in terms of the front of the building and keeping in concert with the historic look.
It was should have been an elevation, yeah.
I know, but I mean, there isn't I get that part, but I mean, in terms of what you're thinking about design and thought about staying, you know, within, because, you know, that whole block has been redeveloped, and there's a theme there. And so is the thought to stay within that historic theme?
Absolutely. It's actually to improve the building from where it currently is. Right now, the third level above the cafe part, when it burnt, and they had to remove a section of the third level, they replaced it with cinder blocks. So currently going down Main Street, when you look at the building,
right, when you're looking up, yes.
It's got cinder blocks exposed. What we want to do is fix that and fill that in, as you can see with the original style brick front, and try to get some kind of a placard back on, bringing it back to the 1800s as the commercial hotel. So that would be bringing it back.
From about this area up right now is where it's just the masonry.
Yes.
So
yes.
we would try to bring that back. Originally there was kind of a pitch roof element that was substantially higher than this, but if we can bring it up at least to the level of the adjacent buildings and then these buildings here as well, you know, we pick up on that same detailing. This opening, this arched opening is there right now. They just have it filled in where a door, and so we'd like to open that back up.
That'd be awesome.
Cool. And the same with this front part here right now is basically just infilled, and then they have the 2 doors, and we'd like to bring it back to where it originally was. So we're taking our design cues from what was originally there, not necessarily surrounding buildings, because this already has plenty of, you know, design elements that we need to play off of. So
now, pretty much every big decision that has affected Hudson has been made in this building. I mean, at Dibbo's Cafe every day.
Right.
So, don't you think, Denny?
I'm not there, so.
I know, but I mean, years ago, I mean, that was the gathering place for
Well,
coffee.
it was until it closed.
Exactly.
I got a question for you on, when you say phase one is to, gut the building basically, that's all 3 floors.
Correct, yeah. Yeah.
And
The second,
basements.
and the basement. So the second and third floors would basically be left shelled until we get first floor up and operational, and then,
Okay, which brings up, when you say you're gonna do the 3 floors plus the basement, clean the basement up, would you be using the basement then for some parking, even under phase 1A, whatever B?
yeah, there is the potential on one of the garages off of the alley, where right now there is a couple of, the current owner has a couple of historic cars parked down there, and there's some beer taps and other things. So there is some available underground parking. There's probably somewhere in the range of 6 to 8 cars that we can get underneath there, along with, there's about 3 spots between the back of the building and the alley that
So
are
your
currently
intention is
used.
to try and take advantage of those spots as soon as
Correct.
possible?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And there is a potential for an additional 2 spots on the south side of the building, where right now it's being used for, it's a garbage storage room right now, but it does have a pull-in garage door and space for 2 vehicles as well.
So where would the garbage go?
It's actually just beer cans. They have dumpsters for their garbage. It's,
I'm asking this because we had another issue in the city. I just don't want to have it again.
yeah, no, it's, I mean, they do a monthly or a quarterly aluminum recycling run, and that's their storage room for that. We don't intend to use that for a beer can or bottle storage room. So that will not be a garbage room. That will be utilizing the dumpsters in the back that are currently there.
Is your intention to brew on site?
No. No, we'll be a micro brew pub, gastro pub, with the craft brew craze over the last 5 to 10 years, and projected growth in it another 10 to 15% a year for the next decade. We feel like Hudson could definitely benefit from an establishment like that in the neighborhood, especially with the summer traffic, and to be another draw for the winter, to bring some more people in for that as well.
So Denny, how's payment in lieu of parking affecting us?
Well, the city, part of the ordinance is that they have a 6,000 square foot exemption in the building. The first floor is approximately 7,000 square foot of usable space. They're adding 13 additional seats in the restaurant, the banquet center. I mean, it's almost a trade-off, the banquet center, with what the band room and the dance floor. So I mean, really from the first floor redevelopment, there's a minimum number of off-street stalls to be required. I'm calculating 5 based on 14 additional seats in the restaurant area. Now, the reason I'm taking it that way, because to take square footage, doesn't come up clean, you know, X number of rooms for the banquet. So I've tried to be as fair to both sides, both the developer and the city. The second floor is probably the greatest potential creator of off-street parking. You'd have possibly 9 from a retail office area, at least is what's been described to us so far, 2 to 3 residences. That'd be 11 to 12 off-street parking spaces. Again, in the third floor, if you had 2 residences, you have 1 per residence in the downtown area. That'd be 18 or 19. Now, they've talked about, they have possibly 2 or 3 in the back, possibly 2 to the south, maybe 68. So by the time you start netting those out, there may be a very minimal impact on payment in lieu of parking. Could be, you know, if you have 19 minus 6, 8, possibly 11, you may have 8 stalls, 8 to 12 stalls potentially. Now again, in the, you know, we would look at the payment in lieu of parking as each phase goes, you know, what occurs. And the second floor, and we'd review it again. Third floor, we'd review it again. But I mean, it's, you could, I mean, if you had 19 stalls, the impact would be 47,500. If you had 10 stalls, it'd be 25,000. So, you know, it's probably going to be in that range somewhere. But with the amount of space that's on the first floor, with that 6,000 square foot exemption, a lot of that area is going to be exempted from the payment in lieu of parking.
When you said your basement has 4 sections and you've come back and said you had 6 to 8 parking stalls in there, I mean, is there more? Or is what is remaining not accessible, not usable, and you need it for
The
mechanical?
remaining are the original 1800s, and they're, you know, the access from Main Street was an old coal chute which had been filled in 50 years ago. So there is no additional access to those.
No easy answer.
Right, right. Not for parking, at least. They're usable for the business, not for parking.
You know, Todd referred to potential city participation. There are grant funds available through DNR. I'm trying to get, or not DNR, but the Department of Commerce, to see if we can get a possible grant, which can actually be applied for by the business owner, not necessarily the city of Hudson. Now, those types of funds would be used for remediation of asbestos, lead paint, those types of things, cleaning up the site. So hopefully, because it's in the downtown area, it's in a near a historic area, that would receive high consideration for funding. The first time I checked with them, they asked if there's water contamination. No, it'd be very hard to prove that there's water contamination, but so that's one thing we're going to work on and see if there's grant funding for remediation. And again, if we can reduce that cost to the developer, that's a bonus to them. The other possibility, the city participation, would be a tax increment financing, but again, that's a process. I mean, we have to go through it. We can't guarantee the developer that tax increment financing could be used. We possibly could use it, but it has to go through the process. And again, you have a board of review, which is made up of other governmental entities other than the city of Hudson. So the city of Hudson is not the singular entity that approves the tax increment finance district. So again, that's a possibility, but we can actually utilize it or not would have to be seen. So I think this project merits the city's review of assistance, if we can provide assistance. But to assure them today that again, we cannot do that.
I love the fact that you're trying to find an outside source for assistance for them. It's no secret that I am not a fan of payment in lieu of parking. So,
Ditto.
I don't want to see us lose this project
Because of that.
over $25,000. That's for sure. I have part of my frustration is you have a restaurant going in down the street that's 5,000 square feet that didn't have to pay because they're 1,000 shy. It's like, well, who's going to bring in more business? You don't know that more cars are going to be, there for the restaurant down the street or for a brew pub. And, someone outside of government kind of pointed out to me that, most of the business downtown, it's not, yeah, it brings in more business, it brings in more people, but, it's also going to be spreading the people out more too. So, and there is Wells Fargo parking, there's public safety lot, there's the beach house lot. We have parking downtown. We have a walking problem. I will say that forever.
You're right.
So I'm not inclined to want to lose this great opportunity for the city, because I think it's great. Over $25,000. So I don't know.
Well, and
I personally made a request for finance to look at it.
Right, and the purpose of tonight's to introduce the project. General concept, I agree with the general concept of the property. The details of where remediation funds can be pursued, and it's not our decision. This is not this body's decision on the payment in lieu of parking. It's a financial decision that has to be made by the Finance and Common Council if they want to waive that. But part of our review is what is the potential of payment in lieu of parking. And by my calculations, possibly, if you have a net, it could be anywhere from 10 to 12 stalls, perhaps. If, again, contingent on the provision of off-street parking. And again, some of those provisions may not be in the first phase, may be in the second phase of the development. So payment in lieu of parking may not be an issue so much until the second phase is actually.
Well, for another year then.
Well,
perhaps.
and coincidentally, and I had no idea this was coming down the pipe, I asked for a payment in lieu of parking to go on finance for Monday's meeting, so hopefully
To review the policy, maybe?
Yeah.
Good. Well, let's get rid of
Because
it.
it frustrates me, but it was coincidence, it's kind of, so just so you know. Go ahead.
Can I ask just one quick question, and just in terms of business disruption on Second Street? So through the demo and stuff, I mean, I'm sure that is a busy commercial, as you know,
Right.
great opportunity. So will most of it be able to be done through the alley side? I know there'll be some front stuff too.
And that's
but-
actually a large part of the reason we want to do all 3 levels at one time, is because we do have an alley in the back with parking, which does give us space in the back to put in tubes from the 2nd and 3rd floor and reduce any kind of traffic from the
Second
front.
Street, yeah.
Right, the front is mainly going to be any kind of a traffic on the sidewalk from the exterior improvements.
Right, right.
Demolition can go out the back for the large majority of it.
And there is that parking spot in front of the hotel, right?
There is, right.
Oh, the
Which-
one
that's
that's
enough.
closed, the one that, the no parking?
Right,
The no parking.
no
so-
parking spot, right.
Yeah, I don't understand why that's no parking.
Well,
It's back for a long, long time ago.
Maybe that'll go on public safety.
I want to say that I'm really excited about this project. Thank you, Mr. Abruzzi, and your group for bringing this. I think it'll be a great element to the city. I hope that the city council will look into this and get rid of this thing. I know we went through this when Brian, you did, with the Doughboys building there.
Yeah.
I just think it's really almost an insult when when somebody's coming to invest $1 million plus, and then you got to tack on an extra $25,000 for parking. I think it's ridiculous.
Not
But
business-friendly city.
Yeah, we weren't necessarily
Well,
gonna,
I take that as an exception.
I know.
The City of Hudson's very business friendly. There may be
Well, but-
certain elements
Right,
of
that's what I meant.
payment in lieu of parking. I think you look at us compared to any other community in the area, we're probably as business friendly as anybody.
I agreed. I was just speaking of the payment in the parking piece.
I haven't been a fan of that stipulation, and I hope that we can, I'm again applaud Denny for looking at some other options, but since Mary said that they're looking at this in finance, that maybe they'll look at that a little bit further to lessen the burden, especially in these economic times.
Well, and I totally concur. Great idea. I mean, Hudson needs that. Hudson wants that. I mean, to restore a landmark in the city, I mean, we'd be foolish to take any other position and with something that's neat like you're proposing. However, and I'm not saying we just, we want it to come, but on a long-term basis, the payment in lieu of parking is something that is, the program, as I understand it, is something that is needed on an over time basis. In other words, as our downtown is successful, as you hit a home run and bring people in there and do things, as our new Italian restaurant comes on stream and has seating capacity of 140 and some of that stuff, pretty soon we are gonna be squealing. And at some point, we just need to be cognizant of that and hopefully take some steps that.
I'm not saying that the intentions of payment in lieu of parking weren't good. What I'm saying is that when you have a restaurant that's gonna seat almost just as many, but has 1,000 less square feet,
Right.
and they don't have to pay in, and you have a different concept that has the same amount of seating, but probably won't be, maybe will be, hopefully you'll be seeing all of them on a Friday night, but you
Absolutely.
don't know,
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, they're two totally different concepts, and 1,000 square feet has one paying in and the other, just something, so.
Payment in lieu of parking wasn't an issue so far with regard to what you planned, right?
Well, when we originally started visiting about it, we didn't know what the full scope of the project was.
Right.
And at one point, we thought it might be as high as 125, 150,000.
For the
Right.
payment in lieu of parking.
Payment in lieu of parking. As the project's evolved, we've been able to take a closer look at what's being proposed. We've been able to fine tune that number. I think the numbers I've given are very close to what is possible if
Right.
that is implemented.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's great that you looking outside the box to
Right.
help offset that cost.
Well,
The-
hopefully we can circumvent that. I mean, we can overcome that. I mean, I maybe didn't get a chance to say that, but I mean, we don't want that to stop it.
Well, and
there's a
again,
reason.
being that I grew up in the area and that my wife and I come down to Hudson for dinner at least once a week. We love the area. We recognize, again, there's a potential future issue for parking. And because of that, we've also got some ideas to help reduce any impact of our property on the parking downtown, specifically around events. When we bring in 300 people for a wedding, potentially have 150 vehicles to find somewhere to park downtown. We'd ask that the city work with us potentially in the future of finding some city parking lots, and that we would volunteer to buy a large airport shuttle type vehicle and direct our patrons that for your wedding event, you park at this parking lot. And that way we keep those large events, that mass 150 car increase, out of downtown. Whether it's in the winter, we get the marina launch plowed. There's a lot of different options we have that we'd like to work with the city on in the future to keep that impact down.
Got a whole industrial park up there, business park up there. All right, well, what do you,
Or as a concept, I mean, you want to endorse the concept or approve the concept, that's what we're looking for tonight.
okay, well,
And I would make a motion to approve and endorse the concept.
okay.
Second that motion.
Do we need any contingencies on anything right now, Benny? No? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Wonderful, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Concept development plans for River City boat storage. Lower level of River City Center for boat storage, 121 2nd Street. Why do I not have my thing?
Mr. Pat Smith from River City Center and Brian Zeller from Elliott Architects is here tonight.
Brian Hines.
Brian Hines, I'm sorry. Hey, Michael,
Mike.
why don't you take it outside,
outside.
please? This is Mr. Brian Hines from Elliott Architects. The general concept of what's proposed in River City Center is to use the southerly part of the lower floor facing First Street for boat storage. To accommodate that, a overhead door would be proposed on the south side of the building with a driveway extending south to Buckeye Street, basically where the present driveway is into the area that's utilized for the sailboat club. Again, concept's very simple. The only issue, I think there's two. One, Dave Krupich is, I believe, is with Brian in regards to where fire suppression may be necessary. Second is that the proposed door needs to conform with the floodplain regulations. We don't, the door as proposed, or at least the bottom elevation of the door as proposed, would be below the regional flood elevation. We've already got 2 or 3 cuts in that wall where sandbagging, or, we just can't allow them to have one additional opening that's susceptible to flood. If they're going to have an additional opening to that building, that needs to be raised so it's in conformance with the floodplain regulations. Other than that, it's a very simple concept. It's something I endorse. I want to make sure it's brought here so Planning Commission can review it and discuss any issues. One issue I believe that would have to be addressed if it does move ahead is that the area on the south side of the building is shared or currently utilized by the sailboat club, and a lot of kids utilize that program. If you're going to have a driveway there that serves for movement of boats in and out, that those areas need to be separated with a fence or something for safety considerations.
That was going to be my question. Can they coexist?
Yeah, they can coexist, and at this point, in fact, there hasn't been a determination if they're going to stay there or not. So it's possible they could move inside the building, or it's possible they won't be on the site. So we talked to Denny about it the other day, and the owners are certainly accepting of that recommendation. So if they are to stay there, we will fence that or provide some type of barrier to the drive lane. And I guess we did speak with Dave Krupich here this evening, and we had a consultation about the sprinkler system, which was his concern. And evidently, it's up to speed in terms of being an S1 use. So, in fact, it exceeds what's necessary for this particular use.
So the storage of the boats would be in the lower level,
Correct, yes.
and the upper level would contain, like, what's going to be in the upper level?
Well, right now in the upper level, of course, is the fitness club and all the remaining tenants to the north of that.
Isn't there an open space there, though?
Unit on the south end, is there still some available space, Pat, on the south end?
On the top floor, yes.
Correct, yeah.
Correct, yeah.
So that would be right above the boat, where this would be, correct?
Correct.
So you're
Yeah.
not taking both levels, or you're just taking
No.
the bottom?
Just the lower level.
Okay, that's
And
what I was
Pat
confused.
discussed the possible use of that south unit, but at this point, I don't know if he wants to make it public, but we've discussed it a little bit, so.
What's the ceiling height in there? How big, I mean, is this for like runabouts, 16, 18 footers, or, I mean, what do you?
Yeah, at this point, it's smaller craft to the
Okay.
extent that we have about 12 feet clear below the structure.
Well,
Yes.
So sailboats, certainly, larger fishing boats, that type of boat. Smaller boats could be stacked as well.
great idea, close.
Would this be the entire basement underneath that?
It would
How
be-
far does that basement go in?
Yeah, there's two sections to it. This section is about 26,000 square feet. So, and that would be the primary one. There's a second section kind of under where the existing tenants all are on the north side, and that is a shorter ceiling height that ramps up in the lower level, so most likely that wouldn't be used.
So you would just rent as available?
Correct.
This is where Chandler was at one time.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's, like
Great.
Denny said, it's pretty clean cut, simple concept one.
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm, thank you.
Any other business for informational purposes?
Next scheduled meeting is Thursday, December 6th. There may be a possibility if a traffic impact study is ready before the next council meeting, maybe we need to come back. And if that's the case, maybe a possible meeting last week of November. I'm going to be gone the 29th and 30th due to a family issue. But, you know, maybe that Monday or Tuesday of that week, if necessary, we may want to have a special meeting.
Okay,
I move to adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor? Aye. You're adjourned, thank you, everybody.